In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cats.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that is here to support you through your journey of dog ownership. And one part of that journey that is especially challenging, adolescence.
Now, we've been increasingly inundated with so many people struggling with this period. Now, basically, they thought they had sorted it. They thought their puppy was doing really well. They were kind of over the initial sort of early puppy stages, and they thought they were plain sailing into enjoying their dog. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, here is their adolescent dog. It's something they weren't anticipating. And yet, both you and I know, Tom, this is completely and utterly expected, anticipated and normal. And in fact, if you didn't have it, it would be abnormal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've been inundated with requests, everybody wanting, like a step-by-step of how to work with an adolescent dog. Your wish is our command. We created it. You will find it over at Absolute Dogs, absolute-dogs.com. It's called Absolute Adolescence, and it's a step-by-step program for you to survive adolescence with your dog. Now, what is adolescence? Well, adolescence is something that is, interestingly, in all social species. It serves a purpose. It's useful. There are survival benefits. We talk about those extensively in the program.
It doesn't always feel useful, let's be honest. It doesn't always feel like this is really useful and purposeful and I'm going to enjoy this. And let's be honest, you've all been through it, or most of you have, and there's the odd one that maybe is listening that's really young here and hasn't been through it yet. But actually, on the whole, everyone's been through it, and it can be a testing time. Absolutely.
And the main sort of reason that you should always come back to in understanding your dog's behavior in this time period is that the aim of adolescence is to test the family bond, to see if it's better to go off by yourself, disband, and you'll be better off surviving without your family rather than within the family group. Now, you're probably thinking, but that doesn't happen. That's never going to happen in domestic dogs. But the point is that the domestic dog is still a social species. These things are still hardwired into them, and their behavior in that time, interestingly, and there's a nice little bit of research on this, their behavior will actually be worse within their family than if a stranger asked them to do something or if a stranger took them for a walk, because it's specific to that family group. There's a level of conflict creation that happens to test that bond.
Now, the sorts of struggles that you might see throughout adolescence, or things that might be challenging. Your dog may be responding to other people better than they respond to you, or maybe your dog just seemingly not responsive at all and actually very responsive only to the environment. Maybe a dog who, whereas they were harmonious with all other dogs and all other people, actually maybe are challenging certain situations a bit more, or maybe testing situations a little bit more. Maybe a dog who started to mark certain areas, or decide that they need to wee up every single area. Maybe a dog who is a lot more vocal than they were before, or maybe their behaviours have changed in the sense that you thought you had a dog that would recall and now they no longer recall. So things are just sort of moving, right?
Absolutely. And really important to say, guys, that the challenges that come about from this period are they're not training problems. There wasn't a problem in your training that has led to them.
And it's not your fault, and you don't feel guilty.
Instead, you've got to approach this as just as there are specific considerations with a puppy or specific considerations with a senior dog, there are specific considerations with an adolescent, because their brain is changing shape, their whole physiology is changing, their whole hormone system is changing, and that has some areas that require extra focus. Now, the areas that require extra focus, first of all, is going to be relationship. This is a time when, for whatever reason, your dog's physiology, hormones, their brain is testing relationship. It's testing that bond. And the point is therefore we need to invest more in relationship. Now that's going to look like picking your battles. It's going to look like being smart about what situations you put you and your dog in this time. It's going to look like actually investing in relationship for the sake of relationship, just having some positive interactions with your dog. This is a time when games come into their own.
It's going to look like being a vigilant owner. I remember recently standing at a ringside doing agility with Tokyo, and a young male dog was like looking at him and sussing him out and doing that sort of thing. And you saw him look, and then his little base of his tail started to raise. And all I did was just walked between them, did an A to B, which is one of the games that we play here at Absolute Dogs. I did a DMT, which is another game. And I know you guys are thinking, oh my Lord, what is she talking about? They're all games that we play in the Absolute Dogs community. And they're games to effectively diffuse that situation and give confidence to a dog who actually could have wobbled in that scenario. So actually, rather than let him have an experience against another adolescent male dog that was probably going to end up inappropriately, why not step in, play a couple of the games. I then diverted off to Magic Hand. You now really do think I'm bonkers. I played some Magic Hand. I did a little bit of Magic Hand and middle on the move, and then got out of dodge. So what I didn't do is put him against that confrontation in that high arousal situation. And I think this is the big thing, Tom, is that so many people, once they see that niggle, so they saw maybe, I don't know, that dog growl at him and his tail rise, they want to kind of test it. And then they want to try another collie male and see how that one works. And they want to suss it out and see if he's going to like do the same thing. And rather than let that go wrong and be rehearsed, actually, why not intervene here and stop that rehearsal and reshape that so it does not become something that is long-term problematic?
Exactly. And this is the other thing to think about with this time point is often, aside from the changes that are happening within your dog and how they're structured and how they work, also, you know, just by the nature of time, you know, they're 9 to 18 months old. This is the time when things that maybe little bad habits that they've rehearsed since being a puppy, now they become quite rehearsed and they become quite ingrained. And that's not to say they can't be changed, but often these are the things where this is the time period where they're fully grown, they now weigh 20 odd kilos, and the things that previously weren't such a problem, now they are becoming problematic. And because they've rehearsed them, they're doing them quite frequently.
And if there's something you really don't like, it is time to interrupt it and stop it becoming stronger and stronger. So, for example, my one again, watching Tokyo strut around the car park and decide to wee up cars, I was like, absolutely not. This is not something we do. And you know what? You're not weeing up there. You don't wee in my house, so I don't see why you need to wee up the cars. So actually, it was one of those moments of deciding. The cool thing is you get what you tolerate and you make the rules. And the rules can be your rules. Some people might not mind that. And if you don't mind that with your dog, that's cool too. We are not judging you for this. We are not a judgy space to be in. We absolutely want to celebrate what you want. So if for you that's cool, that's cool. For me that's not cool, and that's cool too. So what we're saying to everyone is you make decisions, you make the rules, and you get what you tolerate. So and the more that your dog does it, the more they rehearse it, the more they become it. So if that's the direction you like them growing in, then allow it. But if you don't like them growing in that direction, interrupt it, and you have a chance here.
Absolutely. And you know, the key is that when you take a step back and you move away from firefighting and you think, what do I do about this? The answers are nearly always obvious. Probably Lauren's not going to walk in particularly close to stationary vehicles in this time period because chances are, given the opportunity, he may well do it.
Here's the interesting thing. So for you guys that don't know our setup, we actually, Bowerland, which is Absolute Dogs sort of HQ, we close the gate at night and I let them wander around the car park. Well, you guessed it, Tokyo didn't get to wander around the car park for quite a while. Actually, we took him out on lead, or we popped him in the garden where he was allowed to do appropriate toileting. But actually, I didn't allow him to go and have free access to people's vehicles, especially not my mum's Mini. You know what? She took offence to that one. And what I'm saying is we get to set it up, right, Tom? And we set them up for success, not for us to say, oi, no, don't do that. Oi, no, don't do that. We set them up in a way that, another example, if I'm going to walk past a vehicle, I'll put myself vehicle side and the dog the other side. So actually, he'd have to cross me to go up that vehicle, and he doesn't get to do that. So you just make the choices much easier for your dog.
Exactly. And the next kind of component of working with an adolescent dog, and it's one that's so important and it kind of hits you in the face as soon as they hit adolescence, is that all of a sudden whereas before they could disengage from distractions, you could convince them that engaging with that dog over there or that car tire or whatever it might be, they didn't need to do that. Actually, now they're like, no, I really think I do need to engage
to it, right? Like they are like, now I am taking you here. There is no other option. This is the only place I need to be.
And so, this is something that we cover extensively in the Absolute Adolescence program. The key is that we need to work on teaching them that there's value in moving away from things. So don't just lead them away from things. Well, as you're leading them away, how about we feed them? We show them where the value is.
I was working with a dog yesterday, Tom, and literally she was at the other end of her lead, and it's a student's dog, and she literally was shouting about it, and it was like we are going this way. Feed. This is the option. This is the choice. This is how it's going. And actually, it was really hard for her. 13 months old, did not want to disengage from what she was doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to help them make that choice and then also try and make it a good deal, which can be difficult. Now, very quick one, Tom, and I know we are still talking disengagement, but what age is adolescence typically in the majority of dogs that we're talking for here for you guys listening to the Sexy and the Squirrel podcast?
So it's going to vary from dog to dog, and very interestingly is that this is both in humans and in dogs, is that actually the stronger the relationship before adolescence, often the more adolescence is delayed. So, for example, bitches first season, what you might find is that if they're really, really attached to their own, really kind of high level of relationship there, they will have a very delayed first season to the point where it might be they might be 18 months old, they might be 2 years old before that happens. So it not only is there individual variation there, but it's actually down to what you've done beforehand that can impact that as well, which makes it very interesting. But the fact is, it will happen. It's not
stop it.
It won't be. It can't be avoided. It will happen, and you've got to keep coming back to what is this time period? What is its purpose? We need to be growing relationship. We need to be making sure we're rehearsing what we want them to do and not what we don't want them to do. And if we're in doubt about where we should be spending our daily food allowance, we should be spending it on disengagement games.
And a level of patience, a level of understanding, a level of deciding what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. And ultimately, most importantly, knowing it's normal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's normal. You've got this. You maybe need to shift focus and change what you focus on, but don't worry, there's a game for that. And if you're the type of person who likes to be told what to do, which is actually every person, do this and it will work, then Absolute Adolescence program, which is on absolute-dogs.com in the store.
Brand new badge.
You're going to want to check it out. It will tell you what to do, and it does work.
A whole program for you, understanding exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, and it's based on everything that we've talked about, and we dive into the science of it as well. That was this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. Go forth, transform your adolescent dogs, and we will see you in the next episode. Remember, stay sexy. Hey, before you go, have you taken part in the worldwide Sexier Than a Squirrel challenge?
It's a 25-day online video program, huge energy, amazing community, and over 6,000 people are already taking part.
The only question is, you know where you are today, where do you want to be 25 days from now? Head to absolutedogs.me/sexy.